The question every builder asks themselves all the time is that if I spend more money, will I be better? So today, I spent less money. And I bought a bunch of cheap Wen tools on Amazon. We're gonna compare them to my stupidly expensive Festool tools and see if they're actually better and worth their weight, and which one you should buy. First up, we're gonna be comparing track saws. This is the Wen CT1065 10 amp 6.5 inch plunge track saw, coming in at a staggering $103.87. And then I got a 100-inch rail to go with it. That only cost $76. Yes, so total we're looking at 180 bucks. Not too shabby. This is my Festool TS55. This is the RE Cube Plus. This thing's old. They don't even sell this anymore. And this sucker retails for $700 with the track. Only one track, it's 55 inches. So for each of these comparisons, we're gonna compare the features, we're gonna compare like the usage of the tool, and we're also gonna compare the quality. For the tracks, let's start out with features. First and foremost, out of the box, gotta say, I really like the black on the Wen. I said this in the last video, I think the black looks really cool, and the tool itself, definitely bigger than the Festool. Festool uses a very similar size blade. It's in metric, so I have no idea how big it actually is.
Come on now, dog.
One cool thing about all Festool tools, they come in sustainers. That's what this is. And they have a very convenient interior that helps you store everything. Now, the Wen just comes in a box from Amazon, but this has a bunch of little doodads, accoutrements, some trash here, I don't know what that is, which is pretty cool and something that I definitely like about Festool. Another thing that is really nice about this track saw and Festool tools in general is that most of them come with a removable cord, so you can leave the cord on your vacuum and whatnot. The Wen definitely doesn't. The Wen has its own plug just right in there, giving her full power all the time. So feature-wise, these tools have a lot of similarities in them. You're gonna see here, you have a 2-trigger mechanism for both. That's gonna disengage the plunge on the thumb, that'll plunge you down. And then the finger here, that's going to be what starts the tool. It's not plugged in, so it's not gonna start. Same thing here on the Wen. The thumb is what's gonna allow the plunging to happen, then the trigger turns on the saw. So very similar there, no difference. Wen has, as you'll see this sucker, this is how they have you lock the blade into place in order to remove it. So if you come down to one of these settings, locks it in plunge, so you can get access to the nut here to take the blade off. That's gonna be this first setting. On the Festool, it has this sucker. So you have that, and then it actually is kind of a pain in the butt to get this off of here, but similarly, you know, you're looking through a window. Now both tools have an integrated holder for the Allen key. This one's a little bit jank, but it's there, which I dig. That goes in here. This has an automatic lock on it, so I can be free with my left hand. The Wen, you have to depress this button here and then go ahead and use the lock. So it'll freely spin without it. Both of them are fairly easy and similar to remove the blade. So I'm not gonna give Festool the nod on that. It's just as easy to remove the Wen one. Up next, you've got plunge depth. Now, on the Festool, this is one of the big selling points of this track system here is that you can set your depth of plunge. So you can see, I can go here and I can move this stopper up. Mine's in millimeters because it's old. This is before they even made Imperial. But I can set the stop here and I can micro adjust it with this little sucker there if I want to. Literally never found a need to do any micro adjusting. I don't know how detailed you're trying to get on your track plunges, guys, but let's be honest here, that's completely unnecessary.
Necessary?
So the Wen, you have to move this tab to the middle setting here. That's gonna be your cut setting. And then the adjustment is inside here. Now say, essentially does the same thing. You can come lock this sucker in wherever you want, and then flipping the tool around, I can get the same stop action there. So for being insanely cheaper, it has that option, which is hugely valuable in regards to a track saw. It has a scoring stop on it too, which is nice. So that's what this would be. If you want to come through and do multiple passes, you come through, you can score it, and then you can go through the full depth or whatever that might be. So kudos to Wen, also has the plunge, not giving the nod to Festool, even though this is much easier to use and much easier to access. It was $700. It should be a lot easier. Next, you're gonna go to your bevel. Now, this is one spot that when I tested it originally, I was not very impressed with. The bevel does exist, but once you get into it, there's a ton of play in the saw itself. It has markings here with no detents for the angle, which will get you there and get you close. The Festool has knobs on the front and the back where you can slide the saw to do the exact same thing. It's got very clear markings, which is rad, and locks on the front and back. And both of these have the opportunity and ability to micro adjust your fitting and inside of your track, which is rad. So all in all, feature-wise, they're the damn same. This is a coated plate. I think this is as well. Both of them fit the Festool tracks. Both of them have micro adjust, and both of them have dust collection is the last thing I should mention. So without getting into the cut, it's the same damn tool.
You're fucking losing it, bud.
This one's obviously a little bit more ergonomic, a little bit more pleasant looking to the eye, but none of that shit matters in regards to actually using it. So let's do that. Before we cut anything though, let's take a look at the track. Festool, it's an extruded aluminum track. We got these pads for movement, a replaceable strip on the outside for your zero clearance. These are some sort of plastic that helps with the sliding. The Festool saw itself drops right on anywhere you want, and you can just easily slide it forward and back. The Wen also works on the Festool track, but will not drop on unless you hit that locking detent button, then it locks on from there. Both of them have adjustability. The Wen though will only go forward. Let's crack open the tracks, see how these suckers look. That's pretty nice packaging, gonna be honest. So it comes with connectors. So I can put these two tracks together. The connectors are hex keys, no tool, but they will automatically align, which makes it pretty easy. Saw itself fits right onto the track, which is rad. These don't get any slide backwards. For what it is, they're pretty damn close to the same thing. That's pretty cool. The Festool would need a little bit of adjustment to run on that track. There's no play on this guy, just a little bit of play. So out the box, I mean, it's a little bit shorter, but this was $76 for two of them. Ridiculous. Let's break it in. Let me just preface here. I'm not a damn scientist, and I'm not gonna give you some like rating 1 through 10 or some scientific bullshit about the tools. I'm a dude who builds stuff. I like tools. I'm just gonna give you my opinion. If it works, thumbs up. If it doesn't, thumbs down. Like, I don't got anything crazy system for rating or anything like that for you. With that being said, first thing we're gonna do is a straight cut with just the Wen system. And I'm gonna use both tracks without clamping it down. We're looking at 3/4 inch construction grade materials. And guys, I can't preface enough, before you cut anything, make sure your eyeballs are protected with some shop shades. All day comfort, insane clarity, they're the best damn safety eyewear you'll ever wear, I guarantee it. Check them out, I got a link down below. Help support the channel, help me buy more tools like this and do crazy build-offs. So I'm gonna set the depth, I'm at 1 inch, they're going. I'm trying to establish the zero clearance cut here, and so we're not gonna count that cut because you have to start this track saw on the track. You can't start it off because of that indent. I noticed that I had a little bit of a jump in the middle there, so we're gonna cut it again. It's solid. I literally don't have any complaints about the way this tool cuts. It's clean, it's straight. My only qualms are that lock on the bed and that I have to start it on the track and plunge it, and the fact that the hose is short. Now, you can see it was spitting a lot of dust, and it is hooked up to, you know, a dust extractor. My buddy Drew Witt makes a little insert. You can buy off of him, put in there, it helps with dust extraction. But more or less, quality cut, zero complaints with the Wen so far. Now let's try the old girl. I've got my dust collection hose here. Let's give her a cut. I mean, the Festool definitely has more power and it's a lot smoother, but no noticeable difference in cut quality, which is the important factor here when we're looking at some stuff like this. You know, you want to get a quality cut, right? We're looking at a $600 difference between the two products almost. I don't know if those things are worth $600. I've got a piece of 1 inch plywood, and we're going to do the same thing, see how the Wen does on the 1 inch as well. Good straight cut. Let's see how the Wen does. Cut fine, no problem in the 1 inch material, like a little bit of audible struggle with the wood itself, but so far, she's holding her weight. Now time for something that is pretty much just gonna push these saws to their limit. I've got a piece of 10/4 oak here, and we're gonna be a full depth, full cut, single pass, kind of see how that goes. No burning. I mean, it was a fast cut, but you wouldn't expect it to be. It's the full depth of the blade. But all in all, pretty darn impressive. Now, I will say there's a huge difference. We've got a general purpose blade on here from Wen that comes straight out of the factory. It's a 24 tooth. In this one, a plywood blade. So let me go see if we have a ripping blade so we can make this fair.
Oh, to be fair.
I do have a 12 tooth ripping blade, which is insanely aggressive, but we will see. All right, full depth and full send. Here we go. considerably faster cut. The Wen actually has a little bit more depth, but from what I understand, that's gonna be the biggest difference in these two tools. It's just the amount of power. Can I justify telling you that this Festool track saw is worth $700 with a rail compared to $180 for this Wen, especially if you're a beginner? Absolutely not. I'm a Festool fanboy. I have tons of Festool stuff, and if they had this when I was getting started, I wouldn't have bought this. I've had this for years, a long, long time, and there was only one or two other brands on the market when I bought it. That's why I bought it. I highly recommend a track saw for any workshop, and I cannot say for our first tool battle that the cheap tool is worse than the expensive one. If you're looking to get a track saw, highly consider it. Up next, we've got sanders. We've got the Wen 5-inch orbital sander, and go ahead and take a guess down in the comments how much a sucker costs. I'll give it a sec.
We're waiting.
If you said $35.91, you were correct, which is absolutely ridiculous. We're comparing that to the Festool ETS EC 125. That is probably one of their most popular tools, coming in at a staggering $475. Ridiculous. Out the gate, $35 for a sander, incredible price. We've got the corded model, and it is random orbit, and that's kind of what I was looking for because comparably, that's what you want. Both of them have your standard hole pattern for dust removal. They're both hook and loop. They're both 5-inch. The Wen has your more standard, tighter hole pattern, while the Festool has their proprietary hole pattern that's closer to the edge. Ergonomically, this sits much lower to the ground or lower to the material, which creates a lower center of gravity, which is a little bit nicer to hold. This thing's pretty tall, also has this back handle here. It does have variable speed, which is nice, and like I said, it is random orbit. Obviously the Festool, you have your power button here, one finger, one handle, single-handed action. It's kind of common with most of their tools is they try to get it as close to single-hand operation as possible, and then their variable speed is here on the side. Besides ergonomics and looks, there's not much else to be said for it. The cord's permanently attached and it is at another 6 feet again, and then you've got your 12-foot cord here for the Festool, and I can use the same cord on this as I would use on a couple other tools that they make. This one is a little bit higher amperage. I think it's a 20 amp plug. It has that little nub on the top compared to their 15 amps that don't. So let's get some standard materials and give these things a whirl.
Good one.
We're gonna test more or less a very standard application. This is a cutting board. The right side, I'm gonna test the Festool, and the left side, we're gonna test the Wen. The two things I'm gonna be looking for here are just going to be the time that it takes to remove all of the scratches or the pencil marks that I put on here, and the amount of dust that's left on the surface. I'm gonna start off with the Wen, a little stopwatch here. Here we go. Not bad, a little over a minute, and I gotta say, I'm actually super impressed with the lack of material left on the surface. Worked pretty damn good with dust extraction on it, and so let's see how it does compared with the same paper, also at max speed, to the Festool. And here we go. So almost like a whole minute faster. Pretty ridiculous. You could see how much more dirt and dust and debris caught on the center of the paper here. That doesn't have anything to collect dust there. That's why that happens. The Festool actually has a hole here, which does collect. Ergonomically, way easier to control. I actually didn't even need to probably run that at max speed. I would have probably stopped it from jostling around. Let's grab a light and shine it on here and see if there's any easy to see pigtails or discrepancies in the quality of the sand itself. I mean, I would go on a limb and say there's not much as far as discernible differences go. It's pretty much the same. I could definitely see the scratch pattern in both. That's gonna come more from the paper. The random orbit kind of takes care of it. So more or less, like, besides time, it's a wash on the quality of the sand. Let's go up through the grits and just kind of look at it again, see if there's anything discernibly different about the two. And I kind of say the same thing. There's really no discernible difference as far as the quality of the sanding goes. I mean, it's more just a matter of time. It's just a minute longer to use the Wen one so far. Let's go to 220 grit, make the final judgment. So, I mean, both sides look pretty solid, and I can't find any discernible difference with the two sanders in regards to the quality. I don't really know how to take this test anywhere else either, but this is how I would use it. This is about a 7.5 by 12 inch section. It's 5/8 of a square foot, so it's 0.625 of a square foot. This side took me on average 1 minute to sand that section compared to 15 to 20 seconds with the Festool. That's 3 times faster,
I think, right?
2 times faster, however you want to look at it, than the Wen. So that math makes it out to be something like it's 2 or 3 times faster, however that math works out, to use the Festool with the same paper in the same application on the same material with the same dust extraction and the same power setting. So
Same, but different, but still same.
if you're looking to save time, you can easily see why a more expensive sander might be in the cards for you. That $440 difference, let's just do a little bit of math. So if we were to be doing a 8-foot by 40-inch dining table, the square footage of that dining table is going to be roughly 26 square feet. It took us 1 minute to do 0.625. It would take us roughly 40 minutes to sand that tabletop at a single grit. If we're looking at something that only took 20 seconds, we'll even go on the heavier end, that's a third of a minute. So if we're looking at that 42 divided by 0.3, to sand the same table with the Festool is only going to take you about 15 minutes. And so as you go from 80 grit to 120 to 180 to 220, it's going to take you an hour to sand that tabletop with the Festool. With the Wen, it's going to take you 3 hours. So if you charge $50 an hour and you do that table, it's going to cost you $100 more to sand that table with the Wen compared to the Festool. Now, at a $400 difference, you build 4 tables, you made all that time back. So that's how I'd look at it. I know the price seems dramatic, but I highly would suggest getting into a Festool or a Mirka or any high quality sander, because the time saving and quality, you just can't beat it. They're amazing. And if you really want to get the next level, check out the Rotex sander. For this one, I am going to say the more expensive tool, definitely worth its money, because I value my time and I don't want to be sanding forever. On to the next. Up next, we're talking a DIYer's tool, the jigsaw. I've got the orbital jigsaw from Wen. This thing was $32, an absolute steal. Festool, their D-handle style jigsaw is $315. I don't have one. I have a barrel handle, and mine is a battery powered. This one has a cord. The cord should actually have more power. But with that being said, let's check them out. Once again, the Festool comes in a sustainer, and it's held very, very nicely. I'll say about Festool jigsaws is like they put a ton of engineering into this thing that you don't get in a lot of basic jigsaws. Our competition comes with a little how-to, little edge guide, little dust extraction hose, some blades, your power cable, and that's actually not bad looking. Oh, they went a little longer on this one, might be 6.5 feet. This is called a D handle, and this is called a barrel handle. It's a personal preference thing. I like the barrel grip, keeps my hand closer to the material, which I dig. But with all of that, you've got your features. The variable speed is right here on top on the Wen, which is pretty cool. You've got a light here. Oh shit, it's a laser and a light. Oh, fancy as hell. So you got 1-click laser, 2-click light, 3-click both. That's pretty cool. Variable speed. You've got your safety button here. I take that back, that is a lock. You've got a power indicator on the back, as well as your integrated tooling. 3 different strokes here. So if you ever see this on a jigsaw, that's going to be the amount of movement that the saw has forward and back. You can see down there, this is the backstop for your blade. As I move this, it gets further away. So that allows your blade to cut through more aggressive materials. So you got 45, 22.5, and back to 0. Last thing that I'll say is there is dust extraction, which is pretty cool. And it's integrated into the tool and not into the plate, which I have no idea how the hell that's gonna work, because they're always usually typically down into the plate. So that's pretty rad. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this sucker works. On to the Festool. Now, when the Carvex came out and they came out with their whole line of jigsaws, it kind of like changed the market for jigsaws. So Festool's got all kinds of features. You've got, starting out, you have your base plate removal system. You just open it up there, you can pop the bottom off, and they make other plates for the bottom. I believe this one came with it. I can slide this on, and this allows me to adjust to the angle without having to tilt the entire bottom, which is nice because I can also get it on both sides. If I want to cut a 45 2 ways, I can cut it here and I can cut it here, and I can micro adjust it here. Everything kind of slides and locks, and it got that single thumb action there, which is pretty rad. Now, something a little different with the Festool is the tool to unlock your blade is down here. Now mine's actually broken, but you can see there, that will hit where the blade goes in, and then you can drop your blade down here, twist into place, and then to release it, this is actually nice, pops up.
Wow.
Pretty cool single hand function right there. It does come with dust extraction, which is going to be that part right there that we lost, or excuse me, I broke years ago. We'll throw some B-roll up here for you, but that can attach back here when you want it to and then pops off. It comes right above where the cut is happening, which does a pretty damn good job. Something else that's neat about Festool, you can get these insert plates for the bottom to essentially create zero clearance, which is gonna give you a higher cut quality on your cut if you want to, or if you're into that kind of thing. I don't use a lot of these features because I'm a hack. Carpenters and people on site that are doing like really fine work, a lot of this stuff does come in handy. The last thing that I will say about the Festool specifically is that if you look, you can see the light is a strobe. They time the light with a strobe light that makes the blade look like it's not moving. So when you're looking at the blade, it literally looks like it's just standing in place, so you can just easily follow your line. It's pretty insane, and when I first got the tool, I was like,
What the hell is even that?
and I knew I was getting it. But it's one of those features that like kind of revolutionized the tech inside of a jigsaw. Now, I don't know if it's something that's sought after. It's just what I've always had, and I'm not gonna lie, it's awesome. And it gives great visibility to help me stay on the mark. To put these to the test, we're gonna cut some very standard materials. We're gonna do a straight cut, we're gonna do a curvy cut, and we're gonna see if we can cut a circle. This is just a standard construction grade ply, 3/4 inch. We'll do laser and light. Great start. Let's try again. Laser cut, round 2. It worked. I feel like I followed the laser guide the whole time and it didn't do anything for me. Let's try another straight cut. This time, I'm gonna just look at the blade instead of my laser. You see, I'm not perfectly straight.
Can you it?
Not bad for the most part. That tool's really freaking loud. Cutting a straight line with a jigsaw is not easy, so I don't recommend that to anybody. Let's use the same blade, same stuff, and just see how the Festool goes. First off, you can see how quiet it is. Downside to a battery-powered tool. She did. I mean, just as crooked, but I will say much quieter, and it was a lot easier to follow the line. A little curvy curve cut for you. Pretty darn good. I'll say when you're getting on the curve stuff and you're trying to like follow a line, that strobe light really comes in handy. It's crazy, but shit works. It's a lot less smooth. You can see like the cut came out pretty choppy as we were going along. Nothing so terrible that, or like so great from the Festool that you're like, take 10 times more money from me. I need that.
Shut up and take my money.
I guess the last thing that we want to check here is that bevel. Let's see how it does on an angled cut. Go with the Wen first because I'm holding it. 45-degree cut. Relatively uniform cut. It's really damn hard to get straight. Is it 45? No. Is it 45 when we started? Yes. But for me, that's a hard cut to achieve, period, with a jigsaw. I don't give a shit if you're cutting for accuracy or not. Like, this doesn't have any positive stops on it, so you gotta kinda set it yourself. So I will say for that cut, kind of night and day. Considerably much better. We're like pretty consistently way closer to 45 the whole way across. But unless you're getting into these accessories and you're going into like crazy fancy shit, you want a bunch of pads for different materials, you want the zero clearance, I don't think this tool is worth an extra $300. Does it make you a better woodworker and builder? I do think so. But you can do the same stuff with a ton of different tools that you don't need to be investing 350 bucks into a jigsaw for. So that's my thoughts on that. On to the final tool. And last but certainly not least, we've got the electric router kit, the 15 amp plunging model, variable speed from Wen, coming in at a solid $83.81, all included, compared to the Festool OF 2200 EBF Plus. Coming in at a whopping $1,100 with the options of accessories for another $475 and $110. This is the most ridiculous and expensive tool I think I own from Festool, and I freaking love it. Let's crack into this, and let me show you the differences. Oh, 83 bucks comes with a case, baby. We are playing in the big leagues. Starting off, we've got a nice centralized logo on there from good old friends over at Wen. Bang! So I'm not gonna lie, for a plunge router, it is kind of nice to have a case. It looks like up here, we've got the accessory rails for some sort of guide system here, and the router itself sits right there. Accessories aside, let's bust out the OF 2200. First off, just look at that thing inside there.
Look at it.
Beefy, absolute poetry. Ugh. The sustainer itself obviously comes with a bunch of accessories inside of it too for very similar things. Edge guide, you've got dust collection. This has a couple different things for dust collection here. It's got the wrench, it's got tools, it's got collets. The collets I think for this sucker go up on top. Not a bad job on the Wen for the price and for giving you something to store it in. So first thing I'm noticing is the plug is located on the handle, which I'm not a fan of. But that's what it is. The tool comes all the way down. So you're gonna loosen it with this paddle. That's a pretty common practice for a router. This just feels really cheap right here. Most plunge routers are gonna have these features. You're gonna have your depth stop here, which is this guy has micro adjust, and then your lock. What that allows you to do is to drop the plunger down to a depth that you want it to be. You can turn this sucker, you can hear it clicking, drop your depth stop to where you want it, allow the plunge to come back up, start your bit outside your material, plunge down to the depth that you were looking for. It'll hit. That's pretty much the premise of a plunge router. You've got your two-part trigger here. This is safety, so you can't pull this without pushing that in, which is a great feature to have. And then you have your collet stop to change your bits. The Wen does not come with a second collet. It comes with a sleeve if you want to use a 1/4" bit. You can add this edge guide to the tool by loosening those knobs there. There you go. All right, so there's your edge guide, 4 knobs there, pretty standard. The base plate is plastic. Edge guide's fairly standard. You've got some adjustability here with a Phillips screwdriver, and not much else to say about that. It's decently rigid. This is like a cast aluminum. I don't know how accurate that is. You'd be able to pull the workpiece on a straight edge and get a pretty straight cut there, I would imagine. This is interesting. This is for dust collection. Now let's look at the Big Daddy. I'm insanely biased towards this tool. This router is the last router I will ever purchase, last plunge router I'll ever purchase. It just has so much beefy, and it's amazing. Festool has a knob, so your fingers are staying close to you where you're at, 1. 2, it has dust extraction included on the tool. This one doesn't, which I'm surprised because it usually comes in ports like somewhere in one of the handles. Next, you can see the power is behind where your fingers are, which I like. It's not something that's on your hand where I just happen to not like it. We have very similar depth stop capabilities here, except this is much easier to adjust than the cheap one. You can micro adjust a couple things here with all these little doohickeys and doodads. Not to mention, you can also do it from up here, which moves it slightly as I turn it to open or close. Say if we're making a dado cut, put something into or a rabbit, which is really nice. Some of the more extreme features, I would just say Festool's attention to detail altogether. You do have variable speed here, which is rad, but back here you got this little button which drops down the dust collection shoe. The trigger is very similar. You have a lock though on this one, which you don't on that one. You pull the trigger, it goes, you can lock it so you can run it, and then once you let that go, it turns off. Super nice. The base on the Wen, on the cheap guy, is screwed on, and it's plastic. Festool has a really insanely cool system for this tool specifically, that you can pop the base plates directly off of it, which is really rad. And you can see, I use this thing a ton. Pops right back on. If you recall, I mentioned that it has a $475 accessory kit, which I'm not here to sell you guys on anything, but
At all the premium prices.
you can get into different base plates that Festool makes. You've probably seen this in some of my content. It's got a wider lip on it, so I can run this out and keep a little bit more of a firmer plate or hold down on it. Something else I really like about this router is it sits on its ass, and you can work on the bottom like that. On top of that, it also comes with a myriad of accessories. It's got the edge guide, but the thing I think I really love the most about this tool is how well thought out it is. Now, you recall, to change a bit on the Wen, you have to pick the tool up and change it. Now, on the Festool, you have a reverse and a locking. Festool took it to another level with this, and if you want to loosen something, you can go into the loosening phase, and it ratchets. Therefore, you never have to take your tool off of it, and it's a much faster bit change, which is, you would think it's something stupid, but it's so nice. It's a really, really nice feature that you don't think about until you have it. The edge guides themselves have a single lock, unlike other one, where put your rods in, rods are gonna lock right here, one single lock on that side, and then these will always line up. And this is really fast and nice to put on. And Festool's routers all come with edge guides. It goes on really easy. You can get that tightened on here. You have this big knob that tightens and loosens the guide itself. If it's loose, you can use this edge guide here to micro adjust. This router is the same. It's a 15 amp router, just like this one, and it's packed full of features, ass load more of accessories, $1,000 more. Damn! Insane amount. So let's run it a little bit, run them both, and I'll kind of just show you so you can see power-wise what the difference is. We're not gonna go crazy with it because I do believe that you can circumvent a lot of issues on a router with a good bit, but just to kind of show you what something $1,000 more might look like. I don't really know how to test this, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna run dust collection on this because it's not fair to run it when that doesn't even have an option to do it. We'll just kind of gauge it on, I think, noise and ease of plunge. We'll go with the Wen first. Kind of, let's see what this sucker sounds like. So from a plunging standpoint, we're at max speed. Really stiff on the plunge, probably because I had it locked. Let's go again. I mean, not bad, gets the job done. I don't like that play, and it's not that loud. The Festool, super clean. Not a huge difference in the holes, but you could definitely see that the start of the hole from the Wen was a little bit sloppy. Startup, you can hear how much faster the Festool starts up. And you can see naturally it's blowing dust out of it with that dust collection. And then the Wen, a little bit lower RPM, a little bit slower in that regard. An edge guide, a dado cut is going to be something that's going to be pretty common for most of us out there that are doing any sort of woodworking. See if we can get a gauge of difference on that between the two, anything substantial. I mean, minus the play in that head, you know, not a huge bunch of difference here. I do know where the $1,200 difference is though. What you should be able to do with any plunge router, you can bottom out your bit, loosen the plunge feature, and then drop. You can then lock it there. You can then take your depth stop and you can make your depth whatever, unlock, and that's how deep your cut will go. We should be able to make a nice little dado there. Dado. That took a lot of effort. And with no dust collection, you know, it does have its like downsides to it. The Festool, now I do think this bit's a little bit better, so like that might be cheating, but we'll take the Festool and hang it out on the edge a little bit more. We'll do the same thing, drop it on there, same depth of cut, pencil thickness. It's night and day, and I mean, $1,000 difference, I don't know if that's justified, but I will say that's the greatest router on the planet, and fight me in the comments if you don't think so yourself. And with that, I gotta say, the sander's probably the only tool I would say makes you a better woodworker. Everything else is purely convenience. The router, it's gonna be the last router you ever buy. That's probably gonna be the first one. With that being said, if you think anything different, fight me in the comments below, and let me know what stupid video we should make next.